Alright, so here we are in the Netherlands for a dry qualifying, coming around the final corner, running a decent time, coming across the line at a 1:22.739. That's going to be good enough for a little bit of midfield. Push back to P13 for our final run. If you guys didn't notice, we don't have our player card because we were dealing with our audio issues, but that's about 1/10 of an improvement for P10.
It's time to leave for now, but we'll be back tomorrow when the feature race gets itself underway. So today, the sprint race, no pit stops, just full on pace. It's all about speed, daring, and sheer driving skill. What, I wonder, is in store for us today? 4 lefts and 10 rights make up the 14 corners of the narrow and demanding Zandvoort circuit, with plenty of peaks and valleys over the course of the 2.6-mile lap, which will demand absolute concentration from our drivers here today.
Qualifying went fairly well. With the Drivers' Championship pretty much in hand, it would still help to finish strong this weekend.
And as always, as our 5 red lights are coming on, we're going to go ahead and go straight to the sprint race, starting in P1. Victor Martins and Theo Porcher starting behind us. So our 2 main rivals this late into the season, we have to finish ahead, try to close that gap, and get ahead of the constructors for our team. Cordeal actually was P2 in practice with me. It was dry, but they didn't do so well for qualifying, which I thought they were going to be doing. You can see the gap is already about 4/10 or so as we're here already about halfway through lap 1, and we made our setup just the way we liked it, because we got that straight line speed out of those corners, but we have enough front wing downforce to get around these corners and let the car drift to the outside. Sector 2 is not my strong suit here in the Netherlands, and Sector 3 wasn't too bad during practice, but we'll have to wait and see for the sprint race how the sprint race goes as we're coming through to Sector 3. This right-hander to the hairpin. Porcher and Martins, I believe, swapped positions as we're still holding the lead here on lap 1. Coming around this fast double right-hander, DRS line is there. You saw the sign on the right, and this embankment, the largest embankment of the season. It used to be Monza so many years ago. But we're still about 7/10 ahead of Porcher here on lap 6. So they're still trying to follow behind. Porcher, Martins, DeRuvel, Maloney, Maini, Iwasa, Novalak, Haugert, and Correa for our top 10. Hasn't really changed. Cordeal, our teammate, is still back there in P19. As we're not looking to be able to close the gap too much here by the end of the sprint race if it's going to keep going like this. So we're basically taking care of these medium tires, but on this right-hander, we take a little bit too much curb, almost take out the 50-meter board, and we end up in the gravel trap. So it's going to be an unfortunate move for us. We were pushing the car a little bit too much, and we took a lot of curb. Our back tire went ahead and grabbed the grass, and we're back in P11. So it's very unfortunate. We have to try to get back into the points. So later on, lap 7, about a lap or 2, maybe lap and a half or so, finally able to catch up to Fittipaldi and make a move on the inside of turn 1 and 2. Pretty aggressive move, but it was a safe move for us, as we have Correa up next. It's going to be shortly after that hairpin embankment, moving on the inside this high-speed section here into Sector 2, as we're up in a P9 already. Looking to see what we can do against trying to catch up to Hauger. This area, I have to be careful about pushing the car in this area. We don't need that situation to happen again. So we're just going to take it easy through Sector 2 on these medium tires as we are over halfway through this race. By the end of lap 9, trying to make a move on Hauger now for P8. Not quite there, but he has a lockup with our quick little move. I guess he was paying attention to his mirrors a little bit too much to know when his braking zone was. I was a little curious about how the braking works for this game, but we're just gonna take it as it is. Next up on the end of lap 11, Novalak, P7, moving to the outside, side by side through turns 1 and 2, and we're gonna make that position up into a better points position. We are in the points, Novalak is in the points, but we'll take it. We're gonna try to push for a good position for as many points against Porsche and Martins because they are still P1 and P2, so it's not helping our case. Moving on towards the end of lap 12, we have Awasa in our DRS train. The DRS train has improved a small bit, not too much. We'll do the same situation. We're gonna move to the outside like we did Novalak. And take up that position as best as we can, taking a lot of curb and holding the inside line side by side still as we're coming up to the embankment here. And we're gonna push our car ahead of Awasa for P6 at a lap 13. And the gap is gonna be a little bit too much. So we kind of defend here against Awasa. Porsche is on the inside. That's P5, that's a free position for P5. Here on lap 13 and 15, and that's going to be our position for the rest of this sprint race.
Victor by name, Victor by nature. He's taken the win. Victor Martins.
It might not be the same points as the feature race, but it is the same podium, and they get to wave at the fans from it.
An amazing race today, and a very well-deserved one too. The team worked very hard to get exactly the right setup out of the F2 car that works for them, and the results speak for themselves. ARTGP winners today. After all this drama, you'd be mad not to join us for the next race. We hope to see you then. Take care. Welcome along to Zandvoort for another fascinating Formula 2 race today. 2.6 miles make up a lap here at a wet Zandvoort circuit, where some tricky braking zones and sudden drops will push our young drivers to their absolute limit. 14 corners overall, and a 678-metre main straight will provide the best chance for overtaking. Let's take a look at the grid positions for today's race. Dennis Hauger lines up on pole position, with Juan Manuel Correa alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Novalak, Miney, Ayumu Awasa, and Deruvala, Maloney, Porsche, Martins, Johnson, Fittipaldi, Leclerc, Ralph Boschung, Richard Verschoor, Crawford, Nissani, Hadjar, Brad Benavides, Cordial, Behrman, Stanek, and Frederick Vesti completes the grid. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track. It is the Formula 2 race. It is time to introduce you to Alex Brundle. I'm Alex Jakes, and we've got changeable weather out there today. That's making for some nervous team personnel down in the paddock, down in the pit lane.
Well, uncertainty is what strategy's all about, but it absolves the teams from the responsibility of running both compounds of tyre. They might have to use that wet tyre, of course, and then the question is, where do those crossovers lie between the wet and dry conditions?
That was an excellent save during yesterday's sprint. Just remember to take it easy with the heavy rain until conditions start to improve. We're likely to see a virtual safety car or a safety car deployment during the transition to dry tyres.
The formation lap gets underway for this, the Formula 2 race, and each driver will no doubt be mindful of the wet surface as they prepare to race around the track.
Alright, a very wet Netherlands. It's kind of expected with the location of the track being literally right along the coast. On the other side of the grandstands here on the main straight, you have the coastline, the beach. And kind of knew that this was going to happen. So it's going to be a pretty slow start to our feature race here. 5 red lights are on. Starting in P10 behind Martins and Porcher. We're off to an okay start. Martins off to a little bit better of a start. Fittipaldi side by side with us as he's trying to make a move. You can barely see anything. It is so hard to see. You can see all the spray coming up. I did adjust my video settings so we won't have as much stuttering on this replays, if you guys noticed that on the sprint race replay. As we see a couple of position changes there. Scratch on the side pod of Leclerc. As we're trying to hold our position here for P10 and trying to get out from behind the spray to see where we're going. But we're basically going to pay attention to those brake lights and take it easy as our back end comes out a little bit. I found it quite difficult. I still find it quite difficult to drive in the rain with the F2 car, and knowing that it's going to be pretty worse as we come onto the grass there. And once we get to F1, taking the curve there a little bit to slow down. Didn't want to make too much because of what happened in the sprint race, but we're going to hold on to our position for now. You can see just a constant train of the spray. It's just, I don't know if it's in the video settings or if it's part of the game. You can see it on the right tire, the spray, how it's coming off the tires. Not really that great. Locking up a little bit too early for us. I don't know if that was locking up or not, but braking pretty hard as we're coming around the last few corners for our first lap of the sprint race. 20-lap sprint race, and you guys saw by the beginning of the race, it's going to be a 20-lap race. So the plan is to pit on lap 10 for another set of wet tires. Lap 3, still holding back in P10, didn't want to make any risky moves. Try to get the power down there to get the inside of Porcher, but it's not going to do much. We're basically going to have to wait till the weather gets pretty slow. That's going to be a spin from Maloney, I believe. And as we're stationary here, multiple cars, that's going to turn into a red flag. Yes, a red flag here in F2.
A free stop, so let's think very carefully about our strategy for the rest of this race.
Alright, so this is actually the first time we've gotten a red flag here in F2. And the audio there, I'm not sure. Maybe this wasn't intended to happen. with F2. And we've been out of the race long enough to where we are now in the dry weather. So gonna be running 16 laps on the mediums, looks like, for the rest of the race. So let's get to it. Alright, race restart. The track is still pretty slick as our 5 red lights are off. And Nisani off to a great start. Hajar on the inside off to a great start. We didn't start really well. That's 3 positions lost already. Back in a P18 side by side with Stanek on the outside. Everybody 2 by 2. You guys could see by the start, little bump there on Behrman on the outside as we're trying to put the power down, but still keep control of this car. See the slips here and there in the T-pod view of how we're still trying to control the car. The little slip there as the track is still trying to dry out. And yeah, so P18. We were running P10 on lap 3. And we had to wait till the track dried out. So lap 5, P18. And basically get a reset, and we're practically driving another sprint race at this point on a new set of mediums and 15 laps to go after the end of this lap. So basically getting the temperature into our tires and making sure we're in the toe of Behrman by the time we get DRS here in a few laps. I believe on lap 8 as we're coming around through sector 3, closing up the gap a little bit. And doing a pretty good job. 3/10, less than 3/10 is the gap between myself and Behrman. And we're gonna see if we can try to pass him on the inside with the tow from the cars. And we're already within 0.2 of a second, so that's exactly what we're gonna do. We're gonna be able to see a lot more passing here on this main straight. Behrman covering off the inside. We hold to our line. He makes an evasive move there. And we held the outside for a little bit too long, so we're gonna have to reattempt that move later on here in sector 2. This is the other area where we have the straight line advantage. We dipped into the grass too much and narrowly escaped contact with Behrman as he moved to the outside and we moved to the inside. As we're up in a P17, we have a train of cars in front of us to take our tires and wait for some moves. Lap 7 now. Poor chair ahead in the ART. He had a rough start to this race as well. As his teammate Martins is up in P11, we make the move on the inside of this long right-hander. That's going to be P16 here on lap 7, so we're running pretty good so far. Next up is going to be Hajar and Crawford coming through the start of sector 1 on lap 9 is when we're able to make the move on the left side on Hajar, and then get clear ahead. It's Crawford ahead in P14. Martin still P11, the other ART driver that we have to finish ahead of to try to close that gap. And we have DRS at this point here on lap 9. You can see the momentum that we have behind Crawford, pushing him to the inside. We move to the outside. That's going to be Vershore and Nisani ahead, as Crawford tries to make an attempt to the inside, but that's not quite enough. Lap 10 now, same exact move on Vershore this time. DRS, we're within 0.2 of a second. We're gonna move to the inside this time, and with DRS we're gonna hold our line, push Vershore out wide, and we're gonna do a little bit of a brake check as we have a spin from Maloney, and there's the yellow flags in sector 1, and that's gonna be a full safety car. And as we transition over to the safety car, you see there on the bottom right we're marked as P12. We made the move before the safety car was called out ahead of Vershore, and unfortunately not Nisani. So, Hauger and Daruvla in the MP cars, currently front row with 8 laps to go after lap 12. Noblak, Correa, Liney, Leclerc, Fittipaldi, Iwasa, I believe is the top 8. F2, I could be wrong, I don't remember. I think it may be top 12. Boshung, Martins, Nisani, myself, Vershore, Crawford, Hajar, Porcher, Behrman, Benavides, Stanek, Bessie, Cordial, and Maloney. So Cordial, our teammate, all the way back into P21, as we're crossing the line to start lap 13. Is a perspective of Hauger and Deruvula, the top two, to restart this race, as we're taking it easy and looking to see if we can make the jump on Nasani on this race restart. So we almost pulled Verstappen there on the inside, but we're gonna be the responsible driver here and wait for that line, wait for them to jump, and with the easy toe that we have, we're gonna go ahead and take advantage of that. So on the inside of Nasani for an easy P11 to start the safety car restart. That's gonna be Victor Martins up in P10 now. With the similar looking car because we're Alpine Academy. So once again, myself, Martins, and Cordial, I believe, are the Alpine Academy drivers. As we're going to be fighting for position here within the lap or so. If we can't get him on this lap, 4/10 is the gap to P10. And we're still looking strong. So this same area, sector 2, you see we're going a little bit wide. We can never get this braking point, get this braking zone. But we have the range to get in the toe of Martins and see what we can do on the main straight. That's the first area that we really have the advantage with our setup, because we have lowered our rear wing. We talked about it earlier. As we're gonna wait and see what we can do. So getting up and close to Victor Martins, and as we round this corner, you can see we're already within 3/10 of a second. He's gonna make a move to the inside, and we're gonna push him to the inside, and we're gonna make that move on the outside. So we're gonna be side by side through turn 1 and 2 for P10, and we're still gonna be side by side. So we're not quite there yet. He's gonna have the inside for this next turn, but we're not gonna give in. So we make the hairpin, and P10 as of right now on lap 15. Moving on to towards the end of lap 15, Bo Shung up there in P9. No DRS for him, but we have DRS, and that's going to be an easy move on the outside. As we, it seems a little bit too powerful. The train, the DRS trains in the toe. We had our difficulty set. You guys saw where we had our qualifying. Qualifying was dry. But that's definitely not where we should have belonged. So lap 16 now, behind Awasa in P8, and that's going to be a lot of smoke. That's going to be an easy position up into P8 as Awasa retires. And with that start of lap 17, I'm going to go ahead and go to the commentators.
The weekend in the Netherlands has been eventful, particularly for F2. Rain during practice and at the start of today's race led to challenging conditions, resulting in a spin and the subsequent red flag.
The race had just begun when we witnessed a full safety car deployment a few laps earlier due to another driver spinning out. Although it didn't shuffle the grid as drastically as the red flag did, it still resulted in some positional changes. Johnson, along with several other drivers, was caught up in the red flag incident, but they have since managed to regain some of the lost positions as the race has progressed.
Speaking of Johnson, they have practically won the Drivers' Championship for F2, but there hasn't been any celebrations quite yet. I'm sure we will get to see that before the end of the season. What's your take on that, Will?
He definitely seems to be the one to take away that trophy at the end of the season. The only thing that could change that is if ART finished on the podium for the rest of the races, and Johnson doesn't get any more points, but that is still a large margin. So I do think he has that win in the bag. A constructor win for Virtuosi last season and a driver win this season sets them up for great seasons to come.
Well, there we have it. The Drivers' Championship has yet to be claimed by Johnson as we near the end of the race.
And moving on to the final lap from lap 18, this is going to be the fight for P7. As we took those few laps to try to catch up. Fittipaldi P7 on this final few corners. We're going to be in the toe. We have DRS. and it's just going to be a power to the floor, or a pedal to the floor, to the finish line. See if we can get P7, and we do. That's going to be some valuable points.
The Norwegian driver will look up and see the checkered flag first. Dennis Hauger takes the win.
Well, it's the team's local track, and you'd think that'd give them a little bit of an advantage, but they put on a show for the fans out there today who will be checking in on their progress.
Our drivers are making their way out for the podium celebrations, and it's going to be MP Motorsport picking up the winner's trophy. Congratulations to the entire team for that fantastic performance. There will be plenty more twists and turns to come this season. I hope you'll join us at the next race when Formula 2